Hello, this is a bit off the cuff, but somebody recently asked how would I get fog to collide with walls of my buildings and not go through it. So I'm assuming this is like interiors, and the fog is like appearing inside them. So I replied, you could put the fog material function through a volumetric material, and I say this is like, here's a link, you can follow this and then just do that. But I thought about it, and it seemed interesting enough to try it myself. So the purpose of this video is to show you how you can set this up using the fog material function. I think potentially I will turn this into an entirely new feature as part of fog gradients. But for now, I'd want to do that properly. So for now, you can follow this guide, and I'll tell you how to set up your fog material to do something like this. And this is just using Unreal's inbuilt volumetrics system. So to start, you'll want to go to the materials folder, and you'll want to make a copy of Fog Master. So I'll just duplicate that, and then I have what's already called Volume Master, so I'll just rename that again. Volume 2 Fog Master. And in here, you want to change this material domain from post-process to volume, and change the blend mode to additive. Then get rid of all of this, and I made this node setup before, just before I started making this video, and this is a nice setup to, like, just after a little bit of testing, this seems like the sort of control I'd want to get out of the volumetric fog, because it works in a particular way. That goes into there, that into there, and then albedo, extinction, oh wait, no, emissive, and then desaturation there. Cool. So this setup will just give you control over the saturation of the fog, allow you to add the fog into shadows, and change how thick the fog is, because by default it's quite thick. But it seems like when you reduce the thickness, it actually reduces the saturation a bit, just after a bit of testing. So once you've got that set up, what you can do, you can actually take one of the existing example fog materials. I'll take the fog 2 directions here. I'll just duplicate that. I'll rename it V fog 2 directions. I think I've already got that. So I'll just V fog example. Yep. And then in your level, what you want to do is, I made a copy of the example level and just added underscore volumetric fog. You want to go to your post-processing. Of course, make sure that exposure bug is fixed. Yeah, that's a problem for some people it's not. But ever since I made the add-on, people are still asking that question, why is the map bright? I can't tell you other than to reset all the exposure settings to default. But anyway, go to the post-process materials, just remove the existing fog material from there, and you don't need the post-process volume. I mean, you might have a few settings in here, but to get the fog through the volumetric shader, add a cube. I'll just center it in the middle somewhere, so just here it is, and I'm going to scale it up 200 times, and that will create a nice big cube around our level. And this is going to be like the domain of the fog, and you can set up multiple cubes and have different areas where the fog is present. Although you'll see in a second there's no like fall off to that, so like that's why I'd wanted to spend a bit more time turning it into a complete feature set. But let's go back to the materials thing, and we'll just bring in the VFog example material. Quickly before I do that, we made a duplication of it, so the master material is obviously still Fog Master. You can switch it to the volumetric fog master material that we just made. So this one was volume 2, and it will keep all of the settings that it had on the previous version of the fog, which is nice, just because they're named the same. And then we'll drag that in, and voila. So it probably won't look like this at first. You do need to set up something else here that I have already set up here. So to get volumetric fog, you need to bring in exponential height fog. You can find this in here. If you type in fog, you just drag and drop this into the level. I'll just go over what settings I've changed for this. Obviously I've like cranked this up even higher than normal. You want to set the fog in scattering color to white. Previously it's that. And set the directional in scattering to white as well. I'm not sure if this actually changes much, but that was where I got to in my testing. Enable volumetric fog, and you'll see without it turned on, we've got light shafts coming through, but I think that's part of the post. No, it's part of the sunlight here. I'll just turn that off for now. This is what it looks like normally. Go back to the exponential height fog. So this is what exponential height fog looks without the fog, or the volumetric fog, and this is what it looks like when you turn it on. By default it's kind of like this, unless you really crank up the extinction scale to something. But yeah, my cube here, my volumetric fog cube, it actually overrides a lot of this. So setting the extinction scale to 0 will get rid of the extra white that gets added to the color of the fog. And then we'll turn the cube back on. And now we just have our regular fog, except now it has nice light shafts that come through. So we can have some fun with this now. If I change some of the settings here. So I'll bring up, let's see, let's bring up the volume opacity, get some like a lot stronger shafts of light. You see when we do that, we also lose a bit of saturation, so we've also got that slider in there as well. So we can crank that up to whatever style we want to do. Obviously this is a bit more stylized. Oh gosh, those light shafts are great. It probably won't look as good right now for you, because there's a few extra things as well. You want to go into your console. I can do this through the output log. There's a few settings I've changed. So if you type in r.volumetric fog, you'll see there is grid pixel size. Previously I think this was like 16, and I brought it down to 4 so that we get higher resolution. I'll show you what it looks like when it's at a higher resolution. So you lose a lot of that detail there. It becomes a bit more jittery. If we bring it down to something like 2, it's a lot it's lagging quite a lot more now, but you can see you can get quite a lot of detail out of the leaves in the trees. I'll bring that back up to 4. That's not too bad. But yeah, this is an expensive operation, volumetric fog, and definitely can't expect to get this on mobile. But if you want to have the extra level of quality desktop, this is this is really good. I've also changed the grid size to 256. I believe it was 64 when I started, and I've changed the history weight to 0.95. I think previous it was 0.9, but adding 9, a little bit extra, means that the previous frames collected have more influence on it, and so there's less jitter. So if I bring this down to 0.5, you'll see that it's quite speckledy, because the history is being forgotten about. But when we blur all the frames together by increasing the history weight, we get a much nicer result, less speckledy. This is what 9.9 looks like. It looks even better, but it's less responsive. So if you, I don't know, let's say if we actually move the light shaft direction, you'll see that the shadows are hanging around for a lot longer than what we want. It's less responsive, but overall the quality is a lot nicer. It'll be less responsive to the leaves swaying in the trees, which is why I preferred 0.95. With my tests, I found that adding the wind effect, that seemed to work as well. So I'll just turn that on for this first fog and take a second to compile the shaders. Just change some of these settings. Okay, let's find out which fog it's influencing first. Bring up the speed. Ooh, there's something. 10, 5. Maybe bring this down. And then make it move a bit more. So sort of flowing in that direction. Maybe get it going that way a bit more. Slow it down a bit. Just having fun with it. Maybe make this a bit smaller, or larger. Making that number smaller. It's kind of coming through a bit. Maybe it's a bit too strong. Make it stronger. It looks kind of like an aurora borealis, except in the trees. It's a pretty cool effect. It's just like there in the distance while this fog is unaffected. Looks like a poison through the forest. Probably be a bit better if the fog was more responsive. Not quite. Maybe I could bring up the no, maybe not. Yeah. So this is how to set up fog, your fog to utilize volumetrics. Again, I will probably turn this into a complete feature set with examples, but for now, if you want to try this out yourself, there you go. Thanks for watching.